So, hi everyone, this is Anna Runyon at classycareergirl.com, and today in my networking challenge, I'm interviewing Dawn Stanyon. Dawn is the Director of Sales at the Emily Post Institute, and her specialties are body language, communication, and presentation skills. And she also has a blog called professionality.tumblr.com, which is a mix of like professional advice and also fashion and personality, which I love. So, welcome, Dawn, and thanks so much for speaking with me today.
Oh, you're welcome. Hi, Anna.
Hi.
Hi.
So I just want to start out with my first question today. My first question is, how can we as young professional women have body language that projects confidence in the workplace? This is something that I emailed about a lot, and how can we best do that?
That's a good question. And I work with a lot of groups, and a lot of those groups have a lot of young women in them.
Mm-hmm.
And I see the issues that women in general have with body language and communication.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, it comes from inside. Body language are tricks we can learn to help communicate and show an image of ourselves, but
Okay.
we have to be it inside for it to come outside,
Okay.
for it to be perceived as sincere and honest. But three tips, three quick tips would be aware of your strengths and limitations with body language,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be through working with someone. It could be working with your best friend at work, or a
Mm-hmm.
friend at home, or a family member. Um, just stand up and do a little presentation to them for 15 seconds, and then have them give you input. One of my weaknesses is I do this girlish gesture all the time, and it's this. I tilt my head, and that is perceived as girlish because that's what young children do. They rest their heads on their mother's or father's shoulder when they're looking for comfort. And so when a woman is standing up and talking or interacting with someone, if she does that head tilt thing, it makes her look very feminine and very young. And one time I did a presentation to a group of 100 administrative professionals, and I thought I was being so clever at the beginning, and I told them, I have this problem. Would you please tell me if I'm tilting my head? Just tell me to put it up straight. And through the whole day seminar, one lady was telling me to put my head up straight. So that really helped me with that.
I know I
So
do that. I do that a lot with like when I'm giving a
Mhm.
presentation. I don't think I'm giving all the ums, but I am. So,
Very, very, very common. So, number one, be aware of your body language strengths and weaknesses. Check your gestures. It's really important that you not do distracting gestures. So, a lot of people, a lot of women, do the hair thing,
the
touch
twirling.
our hair, twirl our hair if we're talking to someone.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's a close coworker, we should really avoid doing that. Also, another thing is strange gestures with our hands, rubbing your hands together. This is a really ancient gesture. Cavemen have been doing it, did it, and we do it still, and it means I'm nervous, I'm washing my hands of this situation. So you want to try not to do gestures that distract. So you want to not be having high gestures or really low gestures. Keep it between your shoulders and your hips.
Okay.
And then after gestures, I'd say the most important thing to do to convey confidence for a young woman is, like your mama probably taught you, or maybe she didn't, but good posture. You have to stand up straight, have your shoulders back, have your chin forward. I mean, that's how men project confidence. They take up space. They have their big shoulders. They have their arms out like this. They're like, I am taking up space. I'm here. Women need to do that too. We tend to maybe put our head down or maybe make ourselves smaller. And we definitely should not do that. Stand up straight and look forward.
I love that.
I'd say those are my three top tips.
I love that because I always am more confident if I feel more confident too. And if you walk into a room and you have that in your mind, you say, I'm going to be confident, it just totally changes how you approach the room.
It really is. And when I student taught when I was just out of college, my teacher told me, you know more than they do. And you just always have to keep that in mind. You always know more than your audience, or you have to believe you do. And then that confidence shows through what you do.
Yep. So that kind of leads me into my next question is how we get over our fears of public speaking. This is
Mm-hmm.
another, I know you guest posted on my blog, thank you very much, a
Zero.
couple weeks ago about this. But it's definitely, a lot of people have a lot of fears of public speaking and presentations. So what is your advice to that person who just hates to get up in the front of the room and give a presentation?
Join the club. I mean, it's the most common fear in the world, right? We've all heard that statistic that people would rather die than public speak,
Yes.
which seems, and I think I used to feel that way. There are so many tricks you can learn for public speaking, and the first thing to know is you have to practice. The most nervous you can be is when you don't know what you're talking about. So, number one, practice what you're going to talk about. Number two, be an expert in what you're talking about. And when I say be an expert, I don't mean you're Einstein. I mean that you have to feel confident in your material. And then number three, practice some more, because that's the key. When I first started doing public speaking for a nonprofit I worked for, I used to go down to my washing machine and dryer and practice my speech talking to the washing machine and dryer. They're a great audience. They never talk back.
Yeah, so is the
But
mirror.
I can make as many mistakes as I want, and then when I have all that content in my head, if I do it differently when I'm presenting, it doesn't matter. You know, you want it to be natural. You don't want to be having a rote memory that you're just calling forth. But so you're going to practice. You're going to own the content, and you're going to do things like practice breathing, because women especially have a problem when they're nervous. All your breath goes up into your throat, and it makes it hard to talk. You know how your voice gets shaky sometimes? All that, it's because we don't have enough air going through. And so before you speak, you need to go somewhere private, even if it's your car, and go for a quick drive, whatever it is, and do deep breathing from the abdomen. And that brings the oxygen up to your brain. It helps it so you think better, and it slows down your pulse and your nervousness.
I love that.
Another trick I have is, you know, the butterflies in your stomach. Don't think of them as like those sad butterflies bashing against each other, making you feel sick. Think of them as excited, colorful butterflies who want to share the information you're going to convey. And I always have this silly visual image of the butterflies just flying out of my throat, which is sort of silly, but it's an image that really helps me feel excited instead of nervous.
Okay. Yeah, one of my tips I always do is on my drive to where I'm ever going to be presenting, I always do this speech in the car while I'm driving. So it just helps to like go over it one time, like out loud, no one else is around, and then I always feel better after I do that.
That's perfect. I do that too. And I also do this thing sometimes if I feel nervous, I yell in the car. Yelling is really good because it helps the oxygen get moving, you know? So if you're alone, that works.
Okay, that's awesome.
If you're in a cubicle, not so much.
Yeah. So what about informally when we're working with our bosses, our clients, our coworkers? How can we communicate better with them?
Well, the idea of good communication skills is so that you can succeed and build relationships, right? And so what you want to do when you're communicating with your coworkers, boss, colleagues is be aware of your communication strengths and weaknesses. I call them attributes and limitations. So I know as a speaker, I can project warmth, I can be funny, I can come up with things to say, but I also know I might get nervous or I might forget what I was going to say. So I have to prepare myself in those areas where I have limitations. So, you know, one-on-one interactions are a little different than public speaking, but it's the same kind of protocols. You have to have self-awareness, know your strengths and weaknesses. Also, I want to share with young women that I don't want them to avoid conflict, because avoiding conflict leads to conflict, and it leads to stress, and it leads to those butterflies that are bashing against each other in our stomachs instead of being enthusiastic and excited.
Right.
So the trick to that is you can be honest and sincere and put your issues out there and have discussions. People love that. People want to know what to expect from you. And if you're the kind of person that avoids conflict and doesn't share, you can be perceived as passive aggressive, and that's never a great thing. I can guarantee you Donald Trump is never passive aggressive.
No.
Right? Not that everybody should want to be Donald Trump, because I don't. But he does have his skills, and he is the man, and everybody knows he's a straight shooter, and they're going to get it from him. And so people still want to work for him.
Right.
So the trick is be able to talk about things and not let that hold you back. And then it's not all about you. Okay, so when you're communicating with coworkers, we often perceive that maybe they are angry at us or they don't like what we're saying, when that may not be true at all. They have their own issues. Maybe they're under deadline. Maybe they're late. Maybe they didn't get to sleep till 2 in the morning because their baby was crying. So we often project our own fears onto other people. So you need to have big shoulders. And if there is a problem, then you need to talk about it. But have big shoulders and don't always think they don't like me, or because it's not about you.
Right.
We all like to think it is.
Right. No, I definitely, I think when I started working, I didn't want to have conflict, but I realized there's going to always be conflict no matter what. So
always,
you definitely
always.
have to learn.
We have to think of conflict as moving forward instead of bad stop.
Right. And I think standing up for yourself too, you don't want to be walked all over as well. So you have to be able to say no to something as well, and that creates conflict as well sometimes. So
that's right. I do a whole workshop on conflict and civility and how to say no and still be, considerate, respectful, and honest.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah, it's a hard word to say, but if you practice, it comes a little naturally.
Well, often it doesn't have to be no. It can be like, I'd really like to help you with that, but I'm not available till tomorrow at 2. Does that work for you?
Okay, that's a good idea.
There's all kinds of language you can have to kind of say no.
That's a really good idea. Okay. So another question I'm trying to ask at the end of all my interviews is, what is one piece of advice that you wish you would have known as a young professional that you can share with other young professional women?
It's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to do something that you wish you hadn't done, because if we don't do those things, we never grow. And that's the most important thing, that we all keep growing and we all keep learning. A terrible mistake is to think you know everything. And I don't think I've ever thought I knew everything, but I do think I've been afraid to be imperfect. And like I said earlier, welcome to the club, right?
Right.
We're all flawed. So I'd say to young women, put yourselves out there and do big things. And then if something doesn't go right, make your apologies and don't do it the next time.
I love that. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Is there any other last words you want to say?
No, not really. I just love sharing this information, and I'm happy to do this again and share any other kinds of tips.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dawn. I'm glad that you joined me here on my networking challenge. And again, this is Anna Runyon at classycareergirl.com.